Thank you, Chairman. First, I'd like to associate myself with the comments of Senator Cornyn regarding the arguments that lawyers make in the zealous advocacy for their clients, being a thing that may not reflect the lawyer's personal views. And what I would offer is the thought that while I associate myself with, for purposes of this conversation, we might call the Cornyn proposition. The Cornyn proposition has limits to it. It reminds me a little bit of the conversation that I've had with Senator Lee regarding the expression of religious views by candidates for judicial nominations. And that is that they're entirely free to believe whatever they want, and we should not interfere with that. But both the zealous advocacy proposition and the religious views proposition share in common that we all are entitled to know that those views stop in the robing room. That's what I call my robing room rule. And if the expression of a nominee's views is so extreme or so intolerant that it raises the proposition that those are views the nominee cannot leave in the robing room, that nominee will bring out onto the bench with the result that some American does not get a fair trial because that judge is so prejudiced, that's where those propositions end. And my concern with Mr. Brasher is that he is over that line. And in my view, the extreme views that he has enunciated are not a bug of his candidacy. They are the feature of his candidacy for which he was nominated. When you look at the peculiar situation that we are in now with respect to how our judges are selected and nominated and confirmed, we have this Washington Post investigation out there that shows $250 million worth of anonymous money flooding into an array of groups that do something between influence and control who gets selected for judicial nominations. And once they're up and running, you've got people who are writing $17 million checks to support political campaigns for and against nominees, and we don't even know who they are. There's every reason to believe that the two $17 million checks that went to the Judicial Crisis Network came from the same individual. That means somebody paid $35 million to influence the composition of the United States Supreme Court, and we have no idea who that person is. We have no idea what cases they are interested in or involved in. That's a good point. There is a really dangerous mess of political influence surrounding this process. It is my view that those influencers, you don't spend $250 million or $30 million not to have an effect. That's right. They seek to have an effect. And the effect that they seek to have is that their interests will be favored by judges. That the other side will not get a fair trial because the judge will be so predisposed in favor of their interests, whether it's a deregulatory polluter interest or in this case an anti-gay, anti-choice, anti-women interest, that the interest behind all this money gets to win the victory of going into court knowing that they will meet a judge who is predisposed in their favor. So I think there's method to all of this, and that is why I think it's a little bit different. The fact that we don't ever even get the straight scoop on who's who in these proceedings. We have litigant groups that are anonymously funded. We have amicus groups that are anonymously funded. We have judicial selection groups that are anonymously funded. We have judicial campaigns that are anonymously funded. Who's putting all this money in? Are they doing it for nothing? Of course not. So I think we have a bigger problem here than just what Senator Cornyn said. This is not just a question of a lawyer's zealous advocacy on behalf of a particular client. This is a question of a lawyer, in my view, with a very distinct prejudice in favor of a certain point of view that the evidence that I have before me suggests he will not leave in the robing room, and that it is the intention of the people behind his nomination that he not give fair trials, that he actually favor their interests over their adversaries. So for that reason, I'll be voting against him.